Call of Duty Vietnam. That's the working theory going on right now for a lot of the new Call of Duty 2020 installment. And I kind of want to throw my hat in the ring and get back into doing YouTube channels. And a lot of this is accredited to the one Boom. I'll put his link to the channel in description below. He had a really good comment on if they go back to Vietnam, how Black Ops should do it. And I kind of want to chime in with my 2 cents on the issue. So far, this Call of Duty Vietnam, I guess, title card you can kind of see moving past you. It was a work in progress. It was going to be the original Call of Duty Black Ops before they retamed the title, and it actually was an attempt to move Call of Duty to a third-person shooter, but due to some development reasons and other stuff, they just didn't go with it. So this isn't anything official as far as I know. It's just Call of Duty Vietnam that I think that they're reusing a title card. But I really think that Call of Duty could do a lot with Vietnam. And we saw a proof of concept of that with Call of Duty Black Ops. And to be fair, I'm going to be covering a lot of topics in this, and it's kind of off the cuff. I'm getting back in the work of things, and I just kind of want to throw a video together. Strike while the iron was hot. Uh, Please forgive me for the low setup. I'm working on a really shitty mic and my laptop computer. But Call of Duty Black Ops has kind of been the mainstay for Treyarch for a while now. They really came out the gate with a lot of the original Call of Duty titles, Big Red 1, Call of Duty 2, Call of Duty World at War. They really were hitting their own. And then Black Ops kind of became their main workhorse. And Black Ops 1 was a complete masterpiece that did a lot with storytelling and kind of is the precursor to Call of Duty becoming a big action budget type film with a lot of changes to the formula and really perfecting the 3-lane map system. Black Ops 2 brought in a ton of innovations with their campaign, with zombies, with, again, the 3-lane map hideout. Really the game that set everybody onto the Twitch shooter and Call of Duty as a major esport. Call of Duty Black Ops 3 was kind of hot garbage, really pulling into the Twitch shooter, jump in the air, jetpacks type deal that Advanced Warfare had set. And Call of Duty Black Ops 4 we just won't discuss. And now the new thing is it's supposed to either be Call of Duty Black Ops 5, which I feel is thoroughly beating that dead horse, or it's supposed to be Call of Duty Vietnam. And I really think they should go through with Vietnam, because right now 2020 is the perfect setup for Call of Duty to do something different, and it's the perfect time for Treyarch to do something different. So hopefully I'm going to put out some ideas in this, how I would run the game and how I would design the game. And if anybody likes it, they can kind of move this up to the higher ups, or we can have a discussion about it and kind of go back and forth on what we think the new Call of Duty needs. And me personally, number first and foremost, I think the new Call of Duty really needs to focus on storytelling. It's been a while since we had a true blue Call of Duty with a good, decent story. World War II had a good story. I don't care what anybody says, and that's not the debate we're going to have. Modern Warfare's story was kind of for me. It just didn't seem to strike all the points it led up to be. And Call of Duty Black Ops 4 really had no story as far as I was concerned. And one of the things that Treyarch does well is storytelling. They can really knock them out of the park when they put their minds to it. So here's how I would start off. Call of Duty Vietnam, we're going to bring back the two-story system, right? Just like Modern Warfare, we have Ramirez and Roach. Black Ops, where you have Hudson and Alex Mason. We're going to bring in two characters. One an American GI, and one a fresh-faced Viet Cong soldier, farmer turned soldier. And I know a lot of people are going to say, why would they do that? Why would you do the face of the enemy? Well, think about it. There was some discussion to be had when Call of Duty World War II came out to have a campaign with a German trooper. Now, obviously, for a lot of legal reasons, you can't have, and especially in the European markets, you can't have an actual game where you get to play as an actual Nazi and expect it to sell in the AAA market. It's just not going to happen. But the thing of the Vietnam War is America was kind of the bad guys in that war. We were basically imperializing a country we had no rights to be in, that had already been under French occupation for a long time, and ultimately, for a bullshit reason, we now discover with the Freedom of Information Act, we found that the Gulf of Tonkin incident never really happened, and the whole stopping the spread of communism was mostly archaic crap and propaganda. So let's have that. Let's have this discussion, let's run a game where we see two sides of a war and kind of pitch it out there. Something in the vein of Game 7554, which we will talk about later. Keep that in mind. So you have two characters. One character is the fresh-faced, straight into Vietnam recruit. Let's put him in an actual position, though. Let's not just do a story of this character and his squad. Maybe we set him in a position where he actually serves a role in the squad and does specific tasks and targets, and we use him as a modicum to understand the area. We can discuss the propaganda, the way the troops were being viewed versus the way the troops had to relate, racial issues at the time. As we all know, Vietnam was in the middle of the civil rights era, and a lot of men who served in the Vietnam War were people of color, being mixed in with units of predominantly white people. And the whole concept was, well, if we mix them together, it'll kind of let the wheat separate from the chaff. It was a direct attempt by the U.S. government to show that they weren't segregating the units anymore, and it worked to greater or lesser degrees. My father was around almost in Vietnam. My uncle was in Vietnam, and they certainly said, you come to America and there's this very big separation between black people and white people, and then when you go to Vietnam, those separations break down. Some of the men in your squad might be people of color, so it's a big changeover, and we can address that. On the same point, we could show how the Viet Cong start off as simple farmers and simple, craftsmen that under this heavy, destructive, total war where you have napalm burning away hillsides, you have entire towns being destroyed, they would turn into insurgents. They would turn into these fighters who are hiding out in the bushes and fighting for their lives. And slowly over time, let's have these two fresh-faced recruits through the actions and the stories they tell, the people that they see lost, their own personal suffering, we see them kind of convert into kind of two sides of the same coin. People who, for them, killing is as easy as breathing, they're just out for their own survival, and ultimately a lot of the common understandings of what is and isn't civil go by the wayside. A sort of apocalypse now kind of viewing. And let's do this in a way that seems organic. Again, the big thing they need to push right now is storytelling. And they can make a really dark and gritty story. A lot of people criticize Call of Duty World War II for not being dark and gritty enough like World at War was, despite the fact that World at War and World War II were two different games selling two different points at two different points in time. But Vietnam is really that point in time where you can bring back some dark and grittiness. And Vietnam itself was a really controversial war. So if you're going to start with a really controversial subject and you want to pitch a really controversial game, and what I like to think of as the hardcore fans of COD want a controversial game, there's no better reason to go with Vietnam and jumping headfirst into that swamp of just torture, racism, jungle playing tricks on you, horrible mistreatment of humankind and by our fellow man. That type of stuff would really work well for a Vietnam era, and you can go lots of different routes with it. You can have missions that are horror stories. You can have survival missions. You can tell two stories. The renegade Viet Cong member who's fighting against all odds and having to fight on ambushes and getting bombed to shit with napalm and then having to run for his spider hole with GIs hot on his trail. The American GI swooping in on this big propaganda, the helicopters in the air, coming in like you're going to attack and storm Normandy, all to basically terrorize a few villagers. And you can address some really dark subject matter with it too, because that's what the Vietnam War is about. And I know a lot of people will say, well, addressing dark subject matter will kind of be an issue for the media because this game is going to have to sell media, but that's kind of the thing. A perfect counterpoint, I would say, to media outlets, if they say, well, this game seems pretty controversial, or this game is touching on some pretty shallow nerves, all you have to say is, well, yeah, but it's Vietnam. It would be a disservice to not touch on those subjects of this war. So that's what I'd say the story is. Borrow heavily from 7554, which for those you don't know was a game I do believe released in Asia, but made by a French company or published by a French company. 7554 is the date on the Vietnamese calendar when the Vietnam War started, and that game was a first-person shooter, I think utilizing the Call of Duty engine, which is basically a Frankenstein Quake engine, to tell a story of a Vietnamese protagonist, I believe, I forget what his name is, fighting against the French occupation and later against American occupation in the time leading up to the war. I would say use that game as a heavy borrowing to kind of get you some inspiration in the story, and do a justice to the people who are fighting for their homeland just as much as the American GIs fighting for them, and tell that truth of the war. You don't even have to have the two stories intersect directly, but there are basically some big name events you're gonna have to cover. Khe Sanh, Ho Moun Dinh, I do believe it's called. The battle spreading into Cambodia, the Ho Chi Minh Trail, things of that nature. You could do a lot with it. I'd also say with this campaign, you're going to need to license a lot of music, and I'd honestly say licensing the radio broadcasts from the movie Good Morning Vietnam. I forget who that director or the radio announcer was for that. Just a little extra stuff, the same thing they did in Call of Duty Black Ops, where you had Fortune Sun playing in the background and Sympathy for the Devil when you're going up the river. But that's just campaign. I don't really know how the story's gonna work out for that. That's just my hope for it. I'm probably not gonna get that. I'm just pitching an idea for a story mission. Go a dark with 2 different stories of the protagonist kind of coming to one simulacrum. Now let's talk multiplayer. And first and foremost, I want to say this: when it comes to battle royale, which is a really big topic right now in the industry, battle royales are not something I like. But that doesn't mean that battle royales are bad, or it doesn't mean that people don't like battle royales. Hell, they're popular as shit. But the thing with a battle royale is they kind of last a long time. PUBG is still getting support and still has a pretty steady player base, and that's like almost 10 years old. Same with Fortnite. Fortnite, I do believe, is about 4 or 5, maybe 6 years old in total, and that game is still getting post-launch support. It's still super popular. Call of Duty has a Warzone, and that Warzone is free to play, and granted it's full of complete hackers, and expect another video on that, but it's going to be super popular for a good long while. So I would say with Call of Duty Vietnam, don't worry about making a battle royale game. Let Call of Duty Warzone take that one, let the other companies handle it. Instead, focus on bringing up some of the other points of Call of Duty that have been really big and innovating. Again, this is the year for innovation. There's not a lot fighting it, and to be frank, with this coronavirus, people are going to be stuck inside. They're probably going to try it out. Focus on, if you want to do battle packs, use the World War II model. Use the challenge systems, use recyclable loot, you can purchase stuff, do seasonal events. Granted, I don't like microtransactions, but let's face it, Call of Duty World War II probably had the most rewarding and best system going. I played that game religiously and unlocked pretty much everything, never having to buy a single battle pack. They were actually fun to kind of earn and seek challenges, so go with that. Bring back War Mode. I loved War Mode in Call of Duty World War II because if you were just tired of playing Team Deathmatch, you could jump into War Mode. It made other weapons, such as the drilling shotguns and the LMGs, a lot more viable to use. It was more fun to have a true objective-based mode that changed from time to time, and it was just kind of a fun thing to have on the outside. I don't think it took away from the game at all. Keep the standard suite of Team Deathmatch and other modes like that, but maybe throw in other missions like what we see with Modern Warfare, where you have holdout missions or spec ops that rotate. Have a game where instead of holding a position, you and a bunch of friends try to hold against Khe-Sanh and have a series of objectives you have to do. Maybe do some other sneak missions where you have to play as a Viet Cong, running from position to position in time and stealthing enough to move some information across the lines. Or, heck, even revolutionize your own multiplayer. I think it would be a great idea is to have a trap system brought into the multiplayer. Let's say you play as the Viet Cong, and one of the traps you can take is a punji trap. Have a big, wide open map, no longer with the 3-lane highways. I would say expand like 5-lane highways and take even the large maps of the old Call of Duty games and make them about maybe twice the size of that. Almost a Battlefield-esque map, so you have points for flanking and a changing in the battlefield. It makes snipers and LMGs more viable. It makes the machine guns not as useful, but it kind of shortens them out. And maybe have some areas where there's high traffic areas where someone could throw down a punji pit. Now, granted, make it so the equipment, when they take it, they have to set it up, and it might take some time as they have to dig the pit and sharpen the stakes, but allow it to sit there permanently. And that would kind of change the tide of battle. If rushers are going to come into your spawn and try to get some easy kills, they run into a bunch of punji stakes because they're not watching. And maybe have those equipment, such as traps or bungees, be only destroyed by explosives. So it kind of gives players a reason to bring with them the grenade launchers, gives them a reason to bring with them explosives. Make a good reason for people to have different types of equipments with them and to kind of open up the support weapon. Because to be honest right now, a lot of Call of Duty Modern Warfare, unless you really try, the big meta is in submachine guns and ARs running around spamming shots and moving at high speeds. When honestly, Call of Duty has a huge roster of guns that almost always get overlooked because the maps just don't support them all that greatly. Now let's talk special operations. They need to have a third mode that people can play offline. It's always been a staple of Call of Duty since Modern Warfare, and honestly since World War, if you want to count zombies. I wouldn't say bring in zombies just because the Call of Duty zombies has kind of been done to death, and it's not really fun with... It's fun for a horde mode, but there's so much to do now it almost seems archaic. I would definitely say open up a new idea, such as side operations. Maybe if you're not wanting to go into multiplayer, but you want to level up some weapons, have some specific Spec Ops maps where you, up to 4 friends, can play them as like side jobs, where you have maybe escorting a truck across the Ho Chi Minh Trail, or maybe attacking American patrol, or something like that, flying in a bombing run. Things of that nature that kind of would be something to level up your weapons with, but you're mostly fighting bots and mostly doing more objective-based stuff that kind of runs in tandem with the campaign. That's what I think we should run with. in short, I know a lot of the ideas really aren't probably going to move through, and there's no guarantee it's even going to be Call of Duty Vietnam. But I really feel if Call of Duty wants to make a really great game, Vietnam is kind of that point in time where they're going to turn this around. I really don't want to see jump jets and like special operations stuff in the multiplayer aspect. I feel the multiplayer was more fun when it's boots on the ground, when it's not a bunch of tactical gizmos, when it's a lot of gunfighting. And honestly, I would say that with Vietnam, you kind of have this perfect mix of guns having tactical attachments with them, with grenade launchers, ACOGs, some degree of a night vision scope, the Starlight scope, but also not so much that you're seeing people like Modern Warfare where they're coming kitting out with a gun that you can honestly just turn any gun into a light machine gun, or any gun that can be converted into any other gun and has a bunch of crazy attachments on it. It's more relying on the weapons to work as they are. So that's my pitch for Call of Duty Vietnam. Again, I like to thank the One Boom for kind of coming out and giving me the inspiration to get back into this and back into my channel. I will include a link to his information in the description below. I do not own the art rights to the gameplay footage. I actually had to pull the gameplay footage off of someone else because the gameplay footage I recorded for this video was not involved. I thank you guys so much for watching. If you want to get in contact with me, I will probably have a Twitter reference in the description below if I get back up on Twitter. But leave a comment below, and I'll see you when I see you.